Oh, it's real now.
It's real life.
We're recording. Big YouTube production happening here.
We're ready. Getting a little sweaty. This is how I start every interview process. Getting
Honestly,
really
true.
nervous.
Gotta wear some good deodorant for an interview. Hi loves, welcome back for another video, or welcome if you're new here. Today I have a fun collab for you. This is my friend Drummond, and you guys have probably seen him before. He's been in some of my other videos, but if not, you should definitely go check out his channel. He is awesome, does a lot of like life advice kind of content, and we originally were going to do 2 videos, but then we talked so much in this video that we're just gonna split it into 2 parts. So this is our advice for going into a job interview. Both of us have been through several interviews, and he's actually interviewed people, so he has a good kind of like manager perspective on what companies are looking for these questions. So we really just thought this would help you guys out, whether you're just getting out of college and searching for jobs, or maybe you're in high school and looking for your first retail job. These kind of apply to all of those situations. Without further ado, we'll go ahead and just get into it.
Question number 1 is, tell me about yourself. I feel like that is just such a broad thing. I feel like even on dates, like when people say, tell me about yourself, my brain just goes,
Yeah.
oh God, where do I even start?
It's so intimidating, and I think it's easy to go on too long with this question, so you really kind of have to calculate before you walk in, maybe like some rough bullet points or something that relates both to your skill set and the job, and that way you're gonna stick to that and not like ramble on and scare the manager away with how you started the interview.
Like if you're applying for a job in film, you don't need to tell them, oh well, I grew up on a farm and I have 2 sisters, and like they're asking that question for a reason, and if you give them too broad of an answer that has nothing to do with the job, you're pretty much wasting time that you could be using to answer a question to like benefit you and help you get the job.
The next question is, what makes you unique? Well, there's just so many special qualities about me that...
Oh, where do I even start? So I feel like that's a good way to also make sure that you're shifting your answers towards what makes you unique and what makes you a good fit for that job.
Absolutely.
So that's also something you should come prepared, like what makes me unique? I'm the type of person, it's really hard for me to like brag about myself. I've never really looked at myself as, oh, well, let me pull out my book of things that I think is great about myself. But like going in thinking like, okay, well, something that makes me very unique is like my personality. I'm a very generous person, which makes it hard for me to brag about myself. But I think that I can twist that towards why it would be effective in that position that I'm applying for, no matter what it is. So I think it's important to like wrap your uniqueness towards the job. I
definitely agree. And I think like you have to basically approach every question like, how are you a good fit for this position? Because that's the whole reason that you're there. And so like it can be really hard to talk and brag about yourself, but like in that moment, that's your job, you know, like you have to leave the best impression that you can. And so I know for me, when I was applying for my job, I currently manage our YouTube channel for our organization. And so I definitely, when I was asked that sort of question, I don't know if it was this exact wording, but I talked about my YouTube channel because that is something that's unique. It's something that I've done since high school, and it's definitely, you know, something that sets me apart from a lot of people because I have the knowledge of being on the platform and what works and what doesn't work. So it's something that I could bring to that role. So that's an example of a way that you would answer that question.
You've been doing it for so long, you've seen the changes. So it's not like they're throwing you on a whole new platform. So like you've seen what you used to be able to do towards what you're able to do now and the algorithms of how that works. So yeah. I think that's really important. I feel like when it came to things that I've done in the past, I've done a lot of sales. So when it comes to selling myself, like I look at myself as kind of like a product, and like how would you sell the product? So if I was looking at myself as a product instead of me myself, it's like, okay, my product is, which as a YouTuber, I feel like your brand is your product.
Absolutely.
So you're actually selling yourself all the time.
All the time, that's our job.
As a YouTuber, we actually are selling ourselves. So what makes you unique? You can talk about, okay, I'm really good at sales. And you can talk about something that you're very good at and then say why that makes you good at that. So I'm good at sales, not necessarily applying for a sales job, but you can be like, okay, because I was so good at that, I'm a people person. When it comes to sales, there's a lot of people out there that are good salespeople because they're just really aggressive and really pushy. And I was a good salesperson because I took the time to get to know someone. So I'm more of a people person. So that's how I rose to the top of sales. And I think that you can twist that into like, that's how I'm unique. And that's something that I'm passionate about. Is I don't really care too much about sales. I even told in a sales job interview, I told them right at the beginning, I was like, I'm not a salesperson. And I was just like, oh my God, why did I say that? Like, that is not a good thing to say when you're applying for something in sales. But I was like, I'm a people person, and therefore that's made me a good salesperson.
Right.
And I think that really impressed them with that.
I think it's definitely important to be honest and speak to your skill set. And so like, that's a perfect example of that. And if you set yourself apart, you're only doing good things for yourself. So
exactly.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, don't try to answer questions generically or what you think they're looking for if it's not true to who you are. Because trying to make yourself seem unique in a way that you're not actually unique, it's kind of hurting you in the long run. Because I feel like as someone who's interviewed a lot of people, you can tell when people are answering a question to try to impress you and not really talking about something that they're passionate about. Because you're just like, oh, okay, so your entire life you've dreamt of being this exact thing?
Right.
No, no one does that. We all know you wanted to be an astronaut.
And now here you are applying for a sales job.
so similar. I mean, you wanted to go to the moon and now you're selling phones. Wow, you've come a long way.
Oh yeah. Oh, this is the question of the hour.
I think everyone should go into every interviewing knowing this, because otherwise, why did you apply for this job?
Yeah.
The question is, why do you want to work here? There's so many different avenues that you can take that down. And I think it's important to go into the interview like knowing what you want to say there, because why would you want to apply for this job? Especially if it's like a job that, I mean, we've all applied for jobs where it's like not our end. It's not the career we've wanted. Like, you can be an assistant somewhere, you can work in retail, and they're gonna ask that question, and it's like, oh, I went to school for architecture. I wanna work at this store because I'm going to be an architect. It's just like, no, like, word it in a way. So I would say something along the lines of, so I'm the type of person that I want to learn more ways of doing this, this, and this, and explain why that job is a good fit for you, because you will learn these things from that job. I don't think there's anything wrong with telling someone like, this is not your end job. Like, no one's going to work in a retail setting, or most people don't want to be an assistant forever.
Right.
And you can just talk about, like, if you went to school for law and you want to work as an assistant at a law firm, of course you don't want to be an assistant forever, but you can be like, I feel like this job would help me learn this, 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 and this, so that it can help me get to this goal later on in life.
I actually worked at a law firm recently, and a lot of the assistants did have that goal. So I think it's great to kind of keep that at the forefront, and it doesn't necessarily even have to be about the position. Like, say the company you're applying for does something you're passionate about, then that's what you talk about. But you definitely just need kind of one of those angles, so that you're not just like, why do you want to work here? Because I need money. Like, no, we know that you need money, but like, you need to have a reason bigger than that for them to be interested and want to hire you.
When you list like stuff that you want to learn from that job, it shows that you're wanting to be with them a little bit more long term to learn something from your position there, versus saying, I just need a job. Because people who just need a job usually don't last long, because they're the type of people that they're not learning from the experience, which I think every job you can learn from the experience. I think every job you have, you should do to the best of your ability, and you should always want to be the top. Like, you should always want to be winning, even if it's not something that you're super passionate about, because I think practice makes perfect. And if you are practicing to do the best, that means when you finally do get the job that you really want, you've already got that skill set that you want to do well. A lot of people just kind of throw jobs away. They're just like, oh, this isn't my future. This is just a job to make money right now. And then when they get to the actual job that they really want, they've kind of set themselves up for being very lazy. And I think once you get to that point, you're not going to know how to be productive. You're not going to know time management. All these things are things that you can learn on jobs that you don't really love, but these are skill sets that you can learn in these jobs. You might as well talk about that in an interview.
And it's also an important attitude to have, even if you are interviewing for a job that you know is just temporary. Like, every person that you come in contact with could potentially help you in the future. And it's an interesting angle to go at it with, but it's true. I mean, I think one of the reasons that I got my job that I have now is because of the references that I had. And if I hadn't worked hard in those previous jobs and internships, there's no way that they would have spoken about me the way that they did. And I do think, you know, of course the interview helped too, but it's still important to have those connections, and you won't make them if you aren't the best version of yourself in everything that you do. So this one kind of goes along with the last question. It's what interests you about this role? This one is definitely also an important question to have a good answer for, because you are at the interview for a reason. And again, it's not just to get money, because that's not why we're going into an interview. You definitely want to pick out some things about it, whether it's something that you're going to be doing, something about the company and how you'd be contributing. You need some kind of answer ready for this.
Yeah, I mean, like, even if it's something as simple as, like, if you're part of the LGBT community and the company that you're applying for is a company that actually supports, like, LGBT stuff, like they go to Pride events, like, saying something like that is even a better way to, like, talk about something that's about you, shows them a little bit about yourself. Because I've always been the type of person where, for LGBT people in general, you don't want to go into a job where you're going to be judged for being part of that community. So I feel like twisting that kind of into it, I know that I've worked for companies like Sprint, where on their website, like when it's like Pride Month, like they put rainbow stuff on there, and it's just, that kind of like wins me over a little bit. I'm like, oh wow, my company cares about me. So kind of spinning that in there and just being like, oh, it's not that I really love this line of work, I don't really want to do retail or sales, but I love the idea of working for a company that is supportive of my rights or putting money towards this type of thing. And even if it's like something like you're very passionate about, like the environment, and that, because there's tons of businesses that do the exact same thing. Mm-hmm. So if you do a little bit of research and like that type of stuff shows, because it's not like their website goes, oh, I support this. Right. So like if you can find like articles where like the business that you're applying for did like a fundraiser for this, and you're like, well, that's also something I'm passionate about. People are like, oh wow, this person did their research and their views line up with ours here with this company. And that's also a way to impress them, that you've done a little bit of research. You're not just applying to 1,000 jobs hoping you get one.
Right, absolutely. I think making that connection is really important, because then they know that you're serious about it. You're not just coming to this interview along with the other 5 that you have lined up this week, you know? It kind of is like that extra step. And that's something that I did in my interview with my current company, because they're a nonprofit and I really find that I connect with their mission. So I wasn't just excited about the position, I was excited about them and being able to help them to move forward. So sharing that, I think, hopefully set me apart in the process. I got hired, so I might have helped.
The next question, what motivates you? I think this is an amazing question, because when it comes to your motivation, like what drives you, what makes you come into work every day and continue to do your job? And I feel like that's kind of a question that they ask to kind of get, like, to see whether or not you would be a good fit for them, because you don't really know how they function yet because you're applying there, but they know how they function in their area. Mm-hmm. So if what motivates you isn't something that they're able to give, that might be something that sets you apart. So do your research about the company, know what their company does. My passion for humans motivates me. So like, I care about helping people. So that will always be like the drive that motivates me towards things. So applying for jobs where that's actually a thing that works for them, that's what I'm looking for. Talking about something that actually motivates you. Don't talk about something that you make up because you think that's what they're looking for. That's something that's very deep and very honest. You don't want to lie at that part, because if you make something up and they hire you because they think you're a good fit for that, and then they can't motivate you, you're going to become very unpassionate about your work pretty fast.
I completely agree. And I think if you are kind of faking it till you make it, like, you're wasting your time and their time, because it's not a good fit. And that's the whole point of the interview process, is to see, like, it's a mutual process. As much as it's kind of nerve-wracking to be that person being interviewed, like, you're also trying to see if this company is a good fit for you, your lifestyle, your career, you know, all of that. It's definitely important to keep that in mind. And I know, just another example for this kind of question, my personal motivation is telling stories. It's something that I've always loved doing. And so I wasn't going to go into a job, at least once I, you know, wanted to go more in the direction of my career and like what I studied in college, that was my main priority, was like, am I going to be able to use that skill set that I just, you know, don't even feel like I'm working? And that was kind of my motivation. So sharing that in the interview, they knew what I wanted to get out of the job and they were able to tell me whether I was going to be able to do that or not. So that's important. The next one is kind of along with what motivates you. It's what are you passionate about? This is another one that I think it's important to be honest, but also do your best to connect it to the job and the company, like you want to do with everything. So for me, it was definitely talking about making videos, telling stories, YouTube, digital media, all of the things that I was kind of trying to connect with and trying to find a job in. So it just definitely depends on the job, and hopefully there's something that you're passionate about that you can connect with it.
I feel like with the line of work that I've started doing, like with like life coaching, because the way I do my life coaching stuff is I call it an interview. It's a 2-hour interview process where I'm interviewing them. So like passion is something I talk to them about all the time, but I feel like it's also like a two-way interview, because not only am I supposed to be their life coach, like they need to know if I'm going to be able to do what I told them I'm able to do, but I also need to know that they're the type of person that I can work with. If we're not on the same page there, like if our passions are like nowhere close to each other, it's really going to be hard for us to have any type of coaching relationship with each other. So like talking about passion in your job, like I think that's really important. You should definitely relate it to your job. Like if you're working in a field like engineering, like talk about your passion in that. Like don't talk about something that has nothing to do with it. But also like for me, the outdoors, like I love that type of stuff. Like I love hiking, and I've brought that up in interviews that have nothing to do with doing stuff, but it was something that I was super passionate about. And then we got onto a discussion with the assistant manager at the time about his passion for the outdoors and stuff that he's done in places he'd hiked. And it was kind of a great way to kind of create a relationship during the interview, because I feel like that's also important, to create a relationship with the people.
Absolutely.
Because you have to remember they're also they're interviewing tons of people. You're not the only one. So if you create a relationship with them after you leave, they'll be like, oh, remember that person that does hiking?
Yeah.
So it makes you more memorable. So the next question we're talking about is, why are you leaving your current job? Even in a situation where you're leaving your job because it's a negative atmosphere or you don't have good relationships with people, I feel like you don't want to talk about that. You never want your new employer to know that the reason that you're leaving is because of a really negative situation. You can spin it in a way that it comes off as like personal growth. So I think it's really important to let them know that the reason I left is because I felt like I wasn't able to grow the way I wanted to grow. And you can leave it at that. They're going to look at you as a future employee, and if you are the type of person that gets angry and talks bad about the managers behind their back, they're gonna see that and be like, ooh, I don't really want to work with that person.
They're gonna feel like they need to dodge that bullet if you paint the picture that way. I've definitely had jobs that I didn't love for a lot of reasons in the past, but I've always done my best to make that positive spin, because it's important also, I think, to show that even when you're in a difficult situation or a job that's not serving you anymore, that you can still try to move forward and be positive about it. So that was definitely something I did with my last job. I was a receptionist. I have a film degree. Like, that was not doing anything for my career, but the way that I spun it in interviews was that I'd learned everything I could from the position, and I was ready to move into something where I could use my creative skill set. And then I'd talk about the things I learned in the job that I think I could bring, you know, so that it wasn't just like, I hate sitting at a desk answering phones, please hire me. You know, like that was never gonna get me where I wanted to be. All right, guys, that was all of our advice for you. Make sure to check out the other part of this video that will be linked down below. If you didn't get to see it yet, you'll get even more advice and tips from us. I almost feel like I was a professional interviewer for a little while there, because it took me about 1.5 years to find my job. So you guys know that if you've been watching my videos, it was a struggle, but we got there, and you know, you'll get there too. And just don't feel like you're alone if you're going through the interview process. Definitely do your research and just do the best that you can and be okay with that, and you'll be fine. Hopefully you guys found this video helpful. If you did, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, and feel free to share any questions or advice or experience that you want to share down below. And yeah, that is pretty much it. Make sure to check out Drummond's channel. I will have it linked down below, and I will see you guys in my video next week. Bye.
See ya.
Turn that shit up.